Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh.
All right, so this one was a request from you. I hadn't heard of the Outrun yet, and I don't even think I saw a trailer. So what gravitated you towards this movie?
We were talking last week about what we were going to do this week, and I had no idea. So I went to IMDb, and then I went to the movie page, and I saw what was playing, and I was like, oh, wait, Saoirse Ronan. Like her? Oh, wait, this is the one that people are talking about? Wait, there's two films that she has out that people are talking about. Is this one of them? So I watched the trailer and I was like, I'll see this. And then I just sent it to you and I said, okay. So that's literally what made me interested in the film.
Okay. Yeah.
Boy, I'm glad I did too.
Yeah, it was good. I thought so initially when I watched the trailer, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a downer.
Yeah.
This is just gonna be just like dredging in wallowing in misery. But it actually wasn't. They did a great job. I guess writer director did a great job, and her name is Nora Fingscheid. So
very good.
I think. And now I don't.
No, you're right. I've been practicing all day. I'm so glad you said it first. Fingscheid. Nope.
And she's German. She is German.
Yes.
Was it based on a novel, I think? Didn't they say it was based on a memoir, I guess, by Amy Liptrot? But it's just ultimately a story about a woman who is an alcoholic and just her struggles with alcoholism over a period of time. I mean, it's a somewhat short period of time. And how did you like how it cut back and forth? Was that confusing to you at all? The thing that I keyed in on quickly was her hair color. Yeah. And it's kind of like, now we've got a mark of time. And
smart.
It's subtle and they don't call a lot of attention to it, but the fact that it's there, if you're interested enough to be like, oh wait, hold on, where are we right now? You're like, okay, now I know we're here because she's got fully blonde hair or she's got just a little bit of a wisp of blue hair. So it's been a little while. And it's that kind of a constant reminder of where you're at in the story. It didn't seem gimmicky to me, the kind of intercutting. I don't know if it necessarily helped the film, but for me, it seemed like it was understandable. You know, I was able to mark that time and figure out where we were at in the story, and it didn't bother me at all. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's like life. Sometimes you remember things from your past. Sometimes you're thinking about the future. Sometimes you're in the present. Sometimes you're living. Sometimes you're in the moment. Most of the time you're not. And I mean me. So it was life. And I think the purpose of the intercutting between different time frames, and I thought about the continuity editor. They must be like, because it does jump time frames in scenes. In the middle of a scene, it'll jump, or it'll go back to the present. So it is a bit, not a challenge, but if you pay close enough attention, and I think, yes, you're right, that hair is an indicator, and it didn't take me long to figure that out. I figured that out pretty quickly because I key into stuff like that. I often think to myself, how long has that hair been like that? I think it's Scarlett Johansson in Endgame. She had red hair and then she had blonde hair, and then the blonde hair is like halfway gone. I was like, wait a second, how long has this been? That doesn't add up to me time frame. I'm sure there's somebody out there who can completely break it down and say, this is how it works. This is why, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I key into stuff like that. So yeah, the hair is an indication. And then later on in the film, during the rebirth section or the next step section, she goes bright orange. That's her present day look. So anything, and I think she's also wearing a super bright orange coat or pink. I can't remember.
Yeah, when she's working for that group.
Yeah, so so it was pretty vivid. Anyway, I think the fractured timeline, for lack of a better term, it has to do with being in the throes of addiction. It has to do with being in the throes of a life where she's not sure when she wakes up what day it is or what she did. She says to her boyfriend later on, what did I do? She knows instantaneously because of a bandage on her hand that she did something messed up. And by his look and the fact that he looks like he's moving.
And he has a bandage on his hand. So like she hurt him.
Yeah. And so the whole idea of isolating yourself on an island to do this job that seems not relevant to anything other than the people who want you to do this job, and not being successful at it because of no no ability to be successful at it. Unless the bird shows up, then there's no job other than her going out in the middle of the night to some dunes and looking around and, being creeped out, because I would be. But so I think the time jumps and everything that happened is purposeful, so you can understand what this person is actually psychologically, physically, and emotionally going through during her sobriety, her lack of sobriety, her need for sobriety, her trying for sobriety. So I think that was important. I will say this: at the beginning of the film, I don't know how long into it. It was maybe 10, 15 minutes, not long. But I thought, okay, well, obviously this is going to be a slow burn, which I don't really like that term, but I don't have another one that's better. And what is anything going to happen in this movie? Nothing is happening in this movie. And then at the end of the movie, I was like, so much has happened in this movie. It was the complete opposite of what I thought was going to happen. I thought you were going to key into two moments, like when she decided she needed to stop drinking and the process after that. But it's not. It's all of the above. So, and it's bolstered by an incredible performance by Saoirse Ronan. Because at first I thought, oh, they're going to say Oscar bait. They're going to say this. They're going to say that. But it matters not. The performance is on the screen. It's breathtakingly real.
Yeah. And I think that I was expecting, kind of like you were talking about, some like whiz bang type stuff. I was expecting leaning into physical events, like real, like she gets in a car and starts driving drunk. And I was expecting these kind of like visceral, physical, cinematic, in a lot of ways. People make them a big part of their movies, but really this is way more grounded in her internal struggles. And you can tell that every single day is a struggle, and every single day is a choice, and every single moment there, you're struggling with making those decisions. And it gives you more of those events and more of those opportunities and more of those times. And it shows you when she fails, and it shows you, the days that she doesn't. And that's what it focuses on, as opposed to the one thing that she did, or the wallowing in the misery of failure.
You said something about cinematic moments in these films are usually her driving a car and that kind of stuff. It's interesting because it just dawned on me when you said that you actually see the beginning of stuff and end of stuff, but you never see the interim. You never see in the middle of it, because she has that big bruised eye. You see her in the beginning of the film. Hey, you want to ride? Sure. And then you see her with a bruised eye. You're not sure if that's, you kind of have an instinct.
You think it's probably,
yeah. That makes sense. It's a stranger. She's drunk,
But it doesn't wallow in it, and it doesn't make a meal out of it, I guess.
Right. But it's just unsettling that, just by the inflection of the guy's voice, that he's not on the up and up. And it's just, anyway, that overly nice thing that people do when they want something from you. Anyway, you don't see anything until later on, and then you really never see the middle part, how she gets that black eye. Obviously, it's from that guy she gets in the car with, and you see her getting out of the car. It's done in such a way that that's not the important parts of the film. The how she got in and how she got out seems to be the important parts. You don't see her going to her first AA meeting. Well, yeah, you do, because then you see her on the island. So yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah, she's going to multiple AA meetings in different locations with different people around, and you are able to see how she's now. They don't really lean into like they don't say anything about her having a sponsor or anything like that. So it's not like a complete, AA type of a. We're going to show you AA soup to nuts, and this is a case study or anything like that. No. But I do think that the addition of her dad, and her dad's kind of bipolar, you can tell he's bipolar, and her living with him, and the flashbacks to how she was, you could tell she was so confused. You feel so bad for her as a child, and, where her dad's just, laying in the bed and she can't rouse him up. And then the other times when he's manic and she's talking to him, and when he thinks he's got the special whale blubber or something, or special something, that's going to be $1 million.
Secretion.
Yeah, it's going to be millions of dollars or whatever. You can see that she's had to deal with this her whole life, and she's figured out ways to recognize and understand, but it doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, and as a little kid, when she goes into the bedroom and she can't get him up, her coping mechanism is just being a little kid playing in the room, as if the father's not in the bed, as if the father can't hear her, as if she's just a little kid playing in another room and she's dancing around, she's doing things. It's showing you how she copes with the pattern of her upbringing. And the other thing that I think is interesting about him being manic and bipolar and all the stuff that he is that there's no judgment in this film. There's no judgment about this is what caused her to be an alcoholic.
No. No. You're right. I did not get that.
No, not at all. I mean, same with the mother being very religious. None of that is, I mean, that's more a point of contention for her than actually her father having bipolar issues or depressive issues, because she goes at her mom a couple of times, but she's also, you see her intoxicated in front of her mom. So that's probably why they put that in there too. So it's interesting, because I think more I'm going back on a point I was just trying to make is that you do see her in rehab, and then you see her in 90 days on the phone call. So there is a big in between it. That's the same group. And then the only other group that she visited is the gentlemen who are on the island.
On the Orkney, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting how much happens in this film, but it's not a lot is happening. It's great because what it does is it allows you to just sit back and give over to it, instead of like some preconceived notion about what, this is going to be about AA, like you were saying, or about judging an alcoholic's behavior, or about judging her or judging him or judging the family. It's not. It just literally unfolds it's almost like a song. It's almost like verses of a song, and the choruses are her and the conducting of the weather. By the way, when I was a little kid, I thought I could conduct the weather too. To this day, I think I did one day. So that scene closer to the end when she's doing it, I was like, I've been there. And I pointed and it thundered, and I pointed and it lightning. I, to this day, will testify. A couple of things happened to me when I was a child that most people would say that did not happen. But to me, it did happen. I believed I could conduct. Also, when we would go camping, I used to be able to conduct like the leaves moving in trees. At least that's what I thought. And so when it happened, I was like, it's so neat that the human experience, you think it's so individual and that only you have these thoughts and these feelings. And then you're like, oh, wait, no. They just made a movie about it. This can't just be me. So it was kind of reassuring. Plus, Shakespeare's play, The Tempest, was in the back of my mind too. And I thought, oh, let her play Prospero in a version of The Tempest. Helen Mirren did. Why not Saoirse Ronan? Let's do it. So anyway, this film is special, but I feel like people might miss out on it because it's hard to, in 2024, give up everything to give yourself over to this movie. Not because the movie doesn't do it for you, but because of everything that we, our cell phones, everything. And I have been trying to not be on my phone as much. So it's easier when you're in the movie. And so I was like, there were 2 times I was completely tempted to look. And then I thought, okay, well, let me just touch my phone because it shakes when there's a message. And I don't know if I'm going to look if there's a message or not, but I touched it just briefly once, but that was a struggle. That it was like I had to force myself to stop thinking about my phone for the seconds or 2 that I was thinking about my phone. But the film, if you give yourself over to it, it is beautiful. It is subtle. It's not overpowering, although it's very powerful.
Yeah, and I think that, you were kind of talking about how it was a song or that kind of a musical type of a thing. And I do think that I don't know if you noticed, but I felt like there was a kind of a low frequency hum throughout the whole film. There's kind of like a drone, like a literal drone throughout the film. And I think that during the scenes when she's with her family and when she's by the sea on the coast, you can tell whether she's on the island at Orkney or whether she's with her family, which is close to the ocean. You hear those waves and you feel that droning. And then she listens to like techno and drill music, like just like it is just constant battering type music. And I don't know if that's her trying to get out of her own head, or I don't know if that's like trying to replicate the droning essentially of the ocean when she's in the city. Because when you're in the city, there's all kinds of, there's honks and there's different sounds, but they're all more piercing and less predictable than waves crashing or, you know, just that constant drone of the ocean. So I thought that it was done well, where it wasn't, they didn't lean on it too much, but it was always there. And you could really hear it when she was drunk, the scenes when you could see that when she was drunk. And so I started to appreciate that about 3/4 of the way through the movie. I was like, yeah, this is definitely a choice on their part to do it this way. And it's also funny because at the end of the movie, you know, she's essentially only there to listen for an anomalous sound, not the kind of like low frequency or, you know, the droning of the ocean that she's very close to. She's listening for that corncrake. So yeah, that's the kind of she's been going towards that feeling of comfort maybe, or solace or respite of, you know, whether it's that kind of like droning music or that drill music or the ocean. And all she needs now, or all she wants now, is that impulse of the bird, to hear the bird. So kind of cool.
There's a lyric, I'm looking for the sound that's going to drown out the world. And also in the film, they talk about that movement under the island, the motion under the island that comes from the legend. And
and the caves, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So and then everybody has their own take on what it is. Speaking of when I was a little kid, thunder and lightning, somebody told me that was angels playing or bowling. And so when I was a little kid, I swear I thought I heard, it sounds like bowling once you think of it.
Okay.
So it's interesting how people have their own concept of why there's an actual vibration on an island. Of course, it's probably the waves. There's probably some kind of scientific, logical reason why it is, but they've come up with all of these mythological things that possibly could be why it is, and what she believes it is, and what the seals mean, and what the ocean means at that, where the outrun is, and all that other stuff. So it's fascinating that there is a score where it does vibrate in places and it does drone in places. And also I think that the idea of techno actually being dronish, but at the same time rhythmic, like, if that makes sense, it's the same thing over and over and over again, which can be dronish, but it does have a rhythmic thing to it. And I think that's a indication of where her psyche is, that she needs some kind of white noise to blot out all of the other things.
We get to see a little bit of her when she's sober and when she's in that new town, and she's literally just trying to find something to do that doesn't involve going to the bar. And the guy walks by her and she starts to, you know, trying to, you know, chin up a conversation, and it's so, and you can tell the guy's like trying to be nice, but also like doesn't really have any interest in talking to her at all. And he's got a place to be and all that stuff. And she's just grabbing on to threads and like, oh man, at the very least, can you just like be close to me and, you know, allow me to smoke a cigarette? So.
5 minutes is all I need, is 5 minutes of your time. And she gets it. That should be if she's nominated for the Oscar, that should be the scene, because it's so, you feel so much for her. And so many times in life when you just want to have a connection with somebody, or you to have a connection with somebody and for them to not have a connection to you is one thing. Unrequited love is it's devastating and it's hard. But to actually push to try to connect with somebody, just to connect with somebody, and then not doing it. And the guy is so sweet and so kind and so nice. And, you know, any other day of the week, any other moment, wherever he has to go is way more important, obviously. And he doesn't technically owe her anything, you know, other than social decorum. But any other day of the week, any other moment, he probably would have stood there and had a cup of coffee with her, or smoked a cigarette with her, or whatever it was. I'm just glad she got that cigarette lit, because as an ex-smoker, let me tell you, is the
that
worst.
difficult?
It's the worst thing in the world to think you're never going to get this lit because of the wind. It's the worst. And then you debate, well, this is why you shouldn't smoke. Even the wind is telling you shouldn't smoke. And you go through and another addiction issue. Your brain just, okay, well, maybe if I go to the corner, maybe if I light my sweater on fire and it does that thing burn, I can light it like that. I mean, things go through your mind that are crazy.
Wow.
You will never know because, you know, you're not that kind of person, but it's so hard what she's going through that she just needs the wind to go, look, give me a break. Like just, it's such an interesting scene. It's uncomfortable, but yet it's essential, because she also needs to relearn how to communicate with people without alcohol. And that
she's had
is
the blanket.
probably,
She's had the blanket of alcohol to run to cover and be like, I'll be good. I'll know what to say. I'll know what to do.
Yeah.
Also, maybe she doesn't really know what to say or do, but she's blackout drunk and she doesn't remember it. So
doesn't care.
Doesn't care. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't care. I knew that we were in trouble with how deep her addiction was when she was refusing to leave the club that one night in the beginning of the film, and then like she's drinking other people's drinks. In 2024. Like if I think I picked up somebody's water bottle at work, I freak out. My nephews make fun of me because sometimes I'll eat off their plate and they're like, you don't want us to drink after you, but you'll eat off our plates. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point, but I'm not wasting that food. Anyway, when you see that, it gets to the point where she becomes angry that they won't give her another drink, that they won't dance on the bar with her, that they want her gone. You know, they try to do that very calming thing where lights go up, and until she gets angry, she doesn't even realize the lights go up. She's like, oh yeah, the lights are up. So what? And it's like, no, the lights have been up since everybody left in last call.
We gave you a hint. Yeah.
Yeah. We were being nice about this, and they're being very gentle. And then finally they have to throw her out. Yep. And that's probably the most cliche drunkard scene she has in the film. Most of them are, I mean, there are, you know, dance crazy, act crazy, try to kiss all over your boyfriend crazy, that kind of stuff. But the other stuff is much more subtle and much less obvious.
You've talked about in the past that it's very difficult to effectively act drunk.
I think it is.
And you've got a couple of tricks, I guess. I mean, what do you think? Is that part of why her performance was so good for you, that she was acting drunk well, or is it just the whole the range of all the things that she had to do and that she did?
Well, it's the range, and name a moment on film that she's not in it. Name a moment in this movie she's not on screen. There's no scene between two of the alcoholics saying, hey, we got to do this for the meeting next week. Nothing. There's no conversation about her behind her back. There's no conversation in the kitchen with her mother trying to tell the young ladies, hey, be cool, be cool. None of it. She's in or part of the scene in every frame of this film. Yeah. And that to me is tough, because she could have easily worn on us to the point where we had no feelings about her other than, you know what, get your life together. We're done. We're judging you now. You're a pain in the ass, and this is why people hate you, and now we don't like you either. It never comes to that. Would I want to be around her when she's getting thrown out of a bar? Would I want to be around her when she's throwing up everywhere? Would I want to be around her as a friend? No, of course not. But not really that comfortable with drunk people anyway, unless, you know, you've had a few yourself and then you just don't know the difference. But drunk people are kind of pains. And so she's on screen constantly, and her emotional range, she never gets like a crazy screaming scene or a crazy crying scene or a crazy monologue or a lengthy comedic moment. None of it. I think the moments that are devastating, she handles so well. And maybe it's nothing to her, but from an admirer of the craft of acting and one who would love to crack the code of acting, which I don't think anybody really does, but you think you can. So coming from that point of view, the small things, and we talked about this before, are always the hardest. Remember when she's at the hospital and they're sitting outside and they're smoking a cigarette?
Mm-hmm.
And she asks him, how you doing? Are you dating anybody? She says yes, but he says yes. And, oh, okay. 3 months. Ooh, that's a lot longer than I was expecting, blah, 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 blah. Then she hears the people coming out of the bar or sees the cafe. And without missing a beat, she goes like, oh, you want to go get a drink?
Mm-hmm.
She has no ability to know what the irony in that moment. None. She just thinks that like it's rolling between them again. And these are the normal conversations that they had. And they usually end up drinking or end up going home or whatever they might end up doing. But she's talking and talking. Oh, you want to go get a drink? Out of nowhere. So those transitional things are hard, in my opinion. They might not seem hard, and she makes it look way easy because she is a talent. But the moments that are real, the moments that she's in that upstairs AA meeting with the 4 or 5 guys, where she could tell she's like shy and she's a little bit scared and she just don't pay attention to me, but I have to do this ritual because that's part of this process and stuff like that. The subtlety behind that. Watch her eyes. If you ever watch it again, watch her eyes. It's very difficult to focus when you're supposed to be doing nothing but something at the same time. It's so difficult. So the amount of screen time and it all being on her back, it's like Tom Hanks in Castaway. He's on screen by himself for an hour of that film, doing stuff without conversation, sort of, but not really. It's really difficult. So I'm always about the subtle, small moments. I love those over the top Oscar winning moments too. I'm not saying I don't. It's almost hard to put into words how pristine her performance is and how it's not hunkered down in some kind of like character thing where she has an accent and she has a hump or she's hunched over or she's got a limp or something, that gives her some physical. It's all internal. And so when you're watching her from the window of the outside of her small little bungalow or whatever you want to call it, cottage, and you can see that she's trying to work on what she's trying to work on and then she gets distracted and then she goes back to focusing. All of that seems like easy to do because she's making it look easy, but she's just doing it. And that is hard in my opinion. So, and plus she's Saoirse Ronan. She has 4 other Oscar nominations, and this is probably putting her in line for another one. I don't know if any of that made sense, but
no. I mean, it does make sense. It's crazy because I feel like I can draw a correlation to that where like when I look at CGI stuff, the transparent CGI that I know is CGI is way more impressive to me than some spaceship flying through space.
Right.
Like it's just like, okay, well, I mean, obviously, yes, that's CGI and you made that, but it's when there's subtle changes to real things that we can't tell is CGI, but you find out later on it's, modified. And I'm not talking about like de-aging people and all that stuff. I mean, that is definitely difficult and sometimes
Panic
it
room.
creates. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
When he comes in and goes across the kitchen.
Yeah, that's cool, but that hasn't aged as well as far as the subtlety of the, it's the way that the light hits those things. It doesn't. Nowadays with CGI, they can have parts and pieces of things that have the same texture and structure and the light absorption and light reflection capabilities as the real thing. So most of the stuff like in Panic, it was 2003, I think, somewhere around there, 2004. During that time, it was very like everything was reflective, and so like you could tell when something was CGI. I mean, it was harder for me to see back then, but nowadays when I'm comparing then to now, yes, it's a lot easier.
But that's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
an effect like making a kitchen counter look real versus coming up with an imaginary spacecraft.
Yes. Or extending a set
making
out. Yeah, extending a set out
Yeah.
with a virtual set and then not realizing that it's not there. Or I mean, another David Fincher example was like how he talked about in a more recent film, Gone Girl, how Rosamund Pike, the take that he wanted, she had this hair over her face. It was at the beginning, you know, when she's like laying on Ben Affleck's chest and she kind of looks up at him. It was that scene, like the first scene in the movie. And they digitally like moved the hair, like they removed the hair, and it looks perfect. You know, it's that kind of stuff where it's just like
2002, by the way, is Panic Room.
2002. Okay, got it. All right.
So close enough.
He was pretty quick back then. Because I for some reason I thought it was like a couple of years, like 4 years later, but that's only 3 years after Fight Club. So that's
well, is the refrigerator that explodes in Fight Club, is that all CGI too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
So
it's
that's
good.
actually a really good comparison that you're making. That's the actor and the engineer. That's exactly why we do this podcast. I just was trying to describe something and then you made it literal by describing how you understood it. And that's exactly right. That's a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because I can't see those performances, the Saoirse Ronan performances, and pull what you're pulling from it. But that's something I'll look for in the future to try to understand that it is really hard. Because it does. You're right. It looks natural. It just looks natural.
It could be for her. I don't know. I just, when you hear Jane Fonda and Denzel Washington talking about still having nerves, it's like, what? I like, you think things are, they're at the top of their game. So you think that these things don't affect them, which is completely untrue. Because when they talk about it, I go, okay, I don't know what it's like to be Jane Fonda or Denzel Washington, but I understand what you're talking about there when you're taking the stage. I understand that moment. I don't like that moment any more than you do, but I understand it. And as for, I was going to say something about, it's not necessarily what I see in her performance. It's what I feel when I'm watching it. So I have the complete ability to disconnect between the technical part of acting and the emotional part of acting. And if you are in that moment and you are making it real, I'll buy into it hook, line, and sinker. That said, there have been many times that I thought something was extremely believable and something was extremely great, but the masses of people thought it was not good acting. So I think it's all in the eye of the beholder, as all art is, as we've often talked about in 10 years. But the comparison you just made about seeing CGI, that's a really good way to look at it. But I feel it more than see it. You know what I mean? Like, I felt Demi Moore's pain in The Substance. She's doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But if the core of what she was doing wasn't there, and I often wonder how much do they feel when they're doing it versus what we feel when we're watching it. And I have never been able to do anything without feeling it. Whether or not somebody felt something when I did it, I have no idea. I mean, I do.
Well, I can say that, I mean, I've seen you in multiple plays and I've definitely felt what you've done on stage. So yeah, that's definitely, that's, don't worry about that. You're good.
It's a little scary to hear stuff like that for some reason. I don't know why, because it's so funny in the world, we're always like finding the negatives. And when you get confirmation of something positive, it's almost unreal, or it's hard to take that in, but thank you. But yeah, it's about a feeling. It's about a moment. There's a moment, and I can't remember where it is in this film now, that I was like, yep. And I must look like an idiot to people, because I will, speaking of conducting the weather, I will feel myself conducting the scene, not meaning I'm conducting it and making it happen. That I mean, like, I am sometimes, like, it's almost like physical and emotional stuff are connected to me. So when I'm having an emotion, I can't help from going, "Ah!" or whatever it may be. I just can't help it. What is the moment? Can't remember what the moment was. But I was like, yep, there it is. Everything she's done up to this moment is great. And everything that she does after this moment, it's the film's going to be great. Yeah. I think it's one of those films that we can't talk about a lot. And I'm glad that we're having a little bit of a shorter conversation than we normally do, because it's definitely the type of film where you have to silence yourself, you have to silence your world, and you have to just watch it. And the other thing I'll say, and I don't know if this is a healthy reaction, but I did have this sense of, I'm glad that that's not my addiction. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like alcoholism, it looks very tough to deal with on screen. And we've seen many, many drunkard films. Yeah. Leaving Las Vegas is tough. Yeah. The Lost Weekend is tough. I was thinking to myself, I've got a lot of stuff. There's a lot of monkeys on my back, and there's a lot of issues in my life. My life. I don't even know what that's from.
It's my wife, and it's from Borat.
Oh, right.
My wife.
So funny. Yeah. I'm starting to think that nothing is original in my life, that I've stolen everything from music and movies, and theater, because things will come out of me, and then like 15 years later, I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, I think I got that from that movie and didn't even realize it. I just adopted it like it was mine. So I'm glad that the film is non-judgmental towards the subject matter. I'm glad the film is not non-judgmental to everybody in the film, the religious zealot, the depressive, the people on the island. There's no condescending that we live on an island and we're creepy because we live on an island and we're weird because we're islanders. None of that stuff is important in this film with my wife. I don't know why, but I did come out with a sense of, I'm glad that the film ends on a high note versus a low note. I was not looking to walk out with not feeling a little upbeat about that she's accomplished something. And the way the film ends, that quick cut is so great. So I say, see it, be okay with turning off the volume of the world and listening to somebody else's volume for a while.
Yeah, that's nice. Very nice. All right. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. On X, we are at Actor Engineer. And for YouTube, just search the Actor and the Engineer podcast. And we'll see you next time.